The defense for Nicole Rice, the person charged in the 2007 killing of Anita Knutson in Minot, is doubling down on their assertions that the case should not move forward to trial. In dispute is whether a Minot police detective who testified at Rice's preliminary hearing last September contradicted DNA testing of samples from the weapon believed to have been used to kill Knutson. Now, following a hearing earlier this month, Rice's attorney, Philip Becker, filed a written brief this week. In the brief, he says forensic analysts who testified at the hearing supported his claim that the detective's testimony regarding whether Rice's sample could be excluded was false. Becker also says he believes the rest of the state's evidence does not tie Rice to the scene of the crime. The state has asserted that they have other evidence, including statements made by Rice and contradictions in the timeline of Knutson's death. The state has 10 days to respond to the defense. For now, a trial is scheduled for next July.